Hey everybody, welcome to Cut, Transform, Glue, and I have some good news. The build of this small carrier drone is finally complete, and let me show you in this video how I got there, how I managed to add even more cargo to it, making this huge crooked tower right here. Well, let's go back a bit and let me show you how I got this idea first. The idea for this project came from this round food container, to which I added tons of 3D printed pieces and some awesome gribblies, and I decided that this one was going to be a 4-legged walking robot. But then I had the idea to add some cargo to it on the top, and let's just say I kinda lost control. And so I began making some cool looking boxes, and then I came up with this modular system right here, and I added even more things to it, and this is where we left in the last episode. Recently a buddy of mine gave me this cute little flask right here, which looks like a tank, so I'm gonna use it to add even more cargo to the thing. I got rid of some useless features and added things to the bottom and to the top of the flask. A polyurethane cast to the bottom and some acrylic and a cool looking gribbly to the top. This kinda looks like a nitrous oxide tank, and I made actually 2 of these, which will be held by these 2 3D printed pieces right here that I made in Fusion 360, and I printed with my Ender 3. Everything was glued together. This right here is the result, and then I primed the piece. But then I needed to figure out how I would attach the tanks to the rest of the cargo, and I decided to go with these ziplock ties for its flexibility and also for its texture. And then I made these minifig Lego hands looking pieces that will attach to the ziplock ties like this. One side of it will grab the tanks, and the other side grabs the cargo. And so far this project has 28 pieces just on the cargo. I think in terms of height, this is how far I'll go, but I still had to add some cargo to the sides of the robot. And speaking of the sides of the robot, I decided to switch from these metal rails right here for these PVC rods, which I found recently. These are very useful and they grab the primer much better than the metal. Now let's talk about the cargo that will be hanging on the side of the robot. Remember these? These are some leftovers from when I was developing the ball joint for the multi-purpose carrier drone, the big one, the big brother for this smaller project right here. In between the 2 pieces, I've added a disc of acrylic, and on each hole on the side, I've added a piece of the PVC rod connecting them together. Some tiny gribblies and other detail pieces, and I was done with it and moved to the other cargo. These are much simpler and they look like some military suitcases. I made them using some laser cut acrylic like these ones right here, and even some pieces of MDF. And you can see that I have this black cable going on all the smaller cases. These were made out of these very old IDE cables. This is very old stuff, way before the SATA cables we use these days. And not only the cables are very useful, but also the connectors look very good. Take a look at this, very useful stuff. And so yeah, this is how they go in the robot, kind of hanging from the PVC rod on the sides, and I really like this look. Now let me take a moment right here to solve some problems. As you can see, this ball joint right here connects to the leg using a round metal rod. This is not useful, and so I replaced the piece with this one right here with a square connector, which works much better. And even this solution took me a couple of tries. As you can see, it was kind of breaking, and so I made this version with a hole in the middle with a 3mm steel shaft, reinforcing it. If you want to have access to all my STL files, including the ones in this project, head over to my Patreon, the link's on the description box. I thought I was done with the cargo, but this cute little piece right here came to me crying for help, and so I had to give it a chance. This was a great use for the pieces I've removed from the legs, and the remaining pair goes back to my collection of 3D printed gribblies. Nothing is wasted right here. A couple of strings of the IDE cable was used to hang this tank on the top of the robot, and I really liked the result. Now I promise you that this was the last piece of cargo on this robot. Old subscribers know me, and they know that this is not the end of the project. I still have one process that I like to do at the very end of the build, and that is the detailing process. I grab the tiniest pieces I have in my collection and I go all over the robot, adding even more detail to it, because as you can see, the pieces look good, but yeah, to be honest, they look kind of plain in some spots. So yeah, there's always something to add to it. So yeah, let's do it. Right when I was done with the detailing phase, I looked to the feet of the robot, and to me it felt kind of boring and maybe even fragile, and so yeah, I had to give this robot some hiking shoes. Let me show you how I made it. I took some measurements of it and I went on Fusion 360 and I made this piece right here. And I even included this slot right here for a hex nut. This is going to be very useful when I'm making the diorama for this figure, because with that I can attach it to the base firmly. The gray piece was made with the precise measurements of the black gribbly, and so it just had to be glued with some CA. As you can see, there's a couple of guide holes on each side, which I made in 3mm so that I can add even more detail to the feet. And here are the pieces with the last detail pass. This right here is kind of the overall level of detail I'm looking in my projects. And on this project, I decided to try these tiny metal hex nuts I have in my collection, and I added them to some pieces of the cargo, like this one right here on the middle, also the fuel tank, and some spots on the body of the robot. Now, I think you may have noticed lots of tiny white discs on the surface of the model. These were made out of 1mm styrene, like this one right here, and using a jig I'm currently developing. This one right here can make 2, 3, 4, 5 and 8mm discs, and the idea is pretty simple. There's a piece of wood and a piece of metal with matching holes on each side, and each hole has a matching steel rod that needs to be hammered down onto the styrene, leaving me with just a tiny disc. Let me know in the comments if you want a tutorial for this jig, which is pretty simple but very useful. But yeah, after that I applied the final coat of primer, and this project is very close to completion. Now let me put it together, and after that I will explain you guys the idea for the scene, the idea for the diorama of this project. Now let me tell you something, this robot with all its cargo on top of it is very unstable. But I guess this was the idea from the beginning, so yeah. Now the build of the small carrier drone is finally complete, and the only thing left to do right here is to paint it. And to be honest, I need to think about it for a while and decide on some cool colors. I have tons of ideas, and yeah, let's see how that goes in the future. Check the links in the description box if you want to support the channel and help me keep going. And as always, thanks for watching.